Hey everyone, it is Ryan Seacrest here. Ready to heat up your summer vacation? Get ready, things are about to get sizzling at Chumba Casino. Your summer getting a whole lot hotter with a special daily login bonus waiting just for you. So sign up now for Reels of Fun and Reels of Prizes right here at Chumba Casino with yours truly. Join me at ChumbaCasino.com and dive into a summer of social casino fun.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Sports Social, now on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Want to beat your mates at fantasy football this season? Why not join us at Fantasy Football Scout, the home of fantasy football? We're one of the leading fantasy football sites in the world. We have tons of expert daily content available for everyone, from new players to seasoned experts. Join us today by subscribing to our podcast for free. Just search Fantasy Football Scout. Don't let Brian win the mini-league again.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, and our match report following the opening day of the Premier League season at the City Ground for once, which saw Nottingham Forest draw 1-1 with Bournemouth. They took the lead after 23 minutes through Chris Wood, and despite controlling the game over large periods, Antoine Semenyo equalised with 4 minutes to go, meaning points were shared on opening day. I'm George Edwards and I'm joined by Tom Newton for this one. Tom, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Nice one. Now, before we get into the actions of the match, obviously the game was largely overshadowed by the injury sustained to Danilo after just 7 or 8 minutes. Now, you'll have seen possibly the incident, and it's not something we really want to explain too much, but there's no malice from Semenyo as they both sort of jump for the ball and Danilo lands on his ankle. I think the club have confirmed that's what has happened. He's broken his ankle. You've got to give credit, I think, to Michael Oliver, who quickly called on the medics and really got things going in that regard. And you could tell, I think, from the stands that it wasn't sort of cardiac related or concussion related because you could see him moving. But you could tell it was a serious situation with the way everybody rushed on. So, Tom, it was, sad really for any player to be caught up in that sort of incident, but especially to know a player who's loved by so many fans, so many players in the squad. It was a very heart-wrenching moment.
And everybody's got high hopes for Danilo this season because obviously he's starting to settle in quite nicely in that midfield. So yeah, doesn't have many complications with his recovery because, like I says, we'll just love him. His affection for the game and everything. So hopefully he'll come back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And obviously, we can't really say hopefully it's not as serious as it looks because I think it is. But we wish him well. So let's get into the match then. And before we get into the team news, coming away from the City Ground, I couldn't really figure out whether it was a good point or not because opening day of the season against your very much bogey team, I think you might take a 1-1 against Bournemouth. But you look at the game, and like I mentioned earlier, Forest controlled it for large periods of the game. I think it was self-inflicted the way they lost it. And it does really feel like 2 points lost rather than one gained. But, the first game of the season, Forest haven't lost it, which I think they've lost the last 4 in a row. So it was nice not to be defeated. So what were your overall thoughts walking away from the City Ground, Tom?
A bit disappointed because, like I says, it's one of those, like you say, it's like self-inflicted, but it's the old adage, isn't it? If you don't get that second goal in a game, it might come back to haunt you. I mean, Neto's made a couple of saves, but we didn't really pepper him. So probably on the balance of play, it is a fair result. But looking at the fixtures when they were released a month or two ago, you'd probably look at the start of the seasons and think, we could get hopefully maximum points because obviously we've got 2 home games and then obviously next week against the promoted side. But I think we haven't beaten Bournemouth in 9 games now, isn't it? So for old listeners, it's a bit like the Walsall of old in the early noughties where we couldn't get a result against them. So looking at the balance of play, I think it is a fair result.
So let's get into the team news then. So for the first game of the season, Matt Sells played in goal. We had a back 4, which was interesting. Obviously tried the back 3 in pre-season, but settled on the 4 towards the end of it. So we had Willy Bolly and Murillo as the centre-backs with Ola Aina and Nico Williams at full-back. Sangare and Danilo started in midfield with Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi on the wings, and Morgan Gibbs-White played in behind Chris Wood. Now, I think that's pretty bread and butter, apart from maybe the midfield, because we've got 4 really good options in Yates, Dominguez, and then Sangare and Danilo. So I think that was the only real question as to who would start. He went with Sangare and Danilo. Obviously, unfortunately, Danilo didn't last very long. But did you have any qualms about the team news, Tom, or was that the side you were hoping to see?
Yeah, pretty much so. Sangare's, but I've seen him in the two games, obviously on the stream against Olympiacos and Villarreal, and he looked very good. And obviously, after the problems what he had last season, with obviously settling in, malaria, AFCON, and all of that, he's come back pre-season in really good shape and everything. And then obviously, Nuno likes Danilo in there with the energy in the legs, what he can bring. So yeah, it picks itself at the moment. It's just like it's a typical Forest thing, isn't it? Because Milenkovic got sent off in the Italian Cup in April, and obviously his suspension got carried over. So yeah, it's just a typical thing what happens to the Forest, isn't it? That he couldn't play yesterday because of obviously the rules of his suspension and everything. But yeah, back for Bolly, like finished the season really well last season, didn't he? And I thought he was excellent again yesterday with Murillo. Nico Williams, who had a decent season last season, he much improved from the season before when we signed him from Liverpool. Then Olaine has been pretty solid, hasn't he, since he signed on a free from Torino last summer. So yeah, all in all, it like picks himself because striker-wise, one is we all know he's not fully fit yet, and they've had to managing him carefully with his fitness and program and everything. So yeah, it picks itself really.
Yeah, on the Williams thing, I think it shows how far he's came because the last 2 years he started well down the pecking order at fullback, but come the third season, come the time where he's at an age where he probably wants to be playing first team football every week, he's found himself as by far the starting right back. We'll get on to how he maybe was looking to be on the pitch later on, but yeah, I think Nico really does stand out. So in terms of the start then, obviously Yates was replaced Danilo early on, but Forest before and after that incident really had a good start, I thought on the ball. They looked like they were taking the game to Bournemouth. They were happy to have possession and try to build things from the start. There wasn't really many chances in the first sort of 20, 25 minutes. Obviously, about 10 minutes of that was not played because of the Danilo injury. But I thought it was a really intentful start from Forest, Tom.
Yeah, Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi Alanga linked up really well. And we have got the hallmarks of a really good side. They did play some like really decent stuff, and there's a lot of positives to take out the game yesterday. But as we will pick later on, is that we still got that inconsistencies in terms of not when we're in like the ascendancy, not getting that second goal. Because I said to my dad yesterday, I says we need a second goal here because 9 times out of 10 Forest are not very good on a 1-goal lead. So yeah, there's a lot of positives to take out the game, but there's a lot to work on as well. And like I said, we just need to sort out the inconsistencies what hampered it last season.
And one of the key positives about Nuno's side, I think, is the way that when they get on the ball, often they look to pass forward and break quickly. And that quick passing was shown as Forest took the lead on 23 minutes. Yates sort of broke free from midfield. He fed it into Elanga, who turned it around to the corner for Wood. Wood then returned it to Elanga to his left. And then it luckily sort of bounced into the pass of Yates, who carried his run forward from midfield, got a shot into about the edge of the box. It doesn't deflect, sorry. It's parried by Neto, the goalkeeper for Bournemouth. And following in is Chris Wood to slot it home. Brilliant classic striker's goal from Chris Wood. And like I mentioned, that move, we were talking before we recorded, Tom, about the difference between Forest under Cooper and Nuno. That move was very much a Nuno move in that we were quick on the ball. We had our intent, a lot of fluidity and a nice finish.
Yeah, and right place at right time because obviously he's had to react really quickly after the save from Neto. And just to touch on Ryan Yates yesterday, as moving forward in terms of the attacking sense, Ryan Yates, I thought he was very good yesterday. He just brought that drive and energy into the side, and he had a really good game yesterday. There's some bits in his game which like just barging into somebody and like giving away like soft free kicks and things like that. But yeah, Yates played really well yesterday along with Sangare, and like I said earlier, it's just we've got the hallmarks of a good side. And we've looked more of a Premier League side under Nuno than we have under Steve Cooper with that low block and all that kind of thing. So, like I said, we are going in the right direction, but we just need to cut out the inconsistencies in the game. And once we're in the ascendancy, we need to capitalise on it and try and get that second goal. Because, like I says, 1 goal with us at the moment, it's never enough.
No, I was really impressed with Yates, like you said, because I was worried about Yates and Sangare being next to each other. I don't really think it's worked in the past, but like you say, Sangare was a bit deeper, which allowed Yates to get forward. And I think they tried that last season in pre-season, playing Yates almost as a 10 at some stages, and it didn't really work. But Yates driving forward, he sort of has a presence and brings the side with him. So I think that's a really good thing. And before we move on, we'll just talk about Wood. I mean, he didn't have that much impact in the match, but he's now scored 12 goals in 17 Premier League games under Nuno. I think the turnaround under the manager has been key. And is that to score goals? That's what he did yesterday.
Yeah, and for the last, 10 months or something, probably a bit less, that he's been really reliable. And if we didn't have him, we'd probably be doing this match report from being a championship side, because his goals have been really key. And at the moment, can't rely on one. You can we? Because there's obviously his fitness issues and the injuries and all that type of thing. So yeah, it's been really key. Chris Wood, I'd like to say, I don't think he had the best game yesterday, but he did get his goal. But like I said, we've had pre-season and the pre-season friendlies and all of that, but it doesn't match the intensity of a Premier League game. And I think it showed yesterday in some factors is that some players was like blowing yesterday, and we'll get onto it in a bit. But Williams was blowing after probably an hour. Aina went off, Alanga went off, and I think that intensity, you can't replicate that. You can do all the fitness work in the world, but it's just that mentally being switched on, and physically it does take a out of you that first game. So obviously it will probably take like the next few weeks to actually get up to like peak fitness levels for this Premier League season.
Yeah, so there wasn't really that much in terms of goal mouth action in the game or in the first half. I think Forest had 9 shots, a few of them troubled Neto, but they still looked like they were dominating the game. But Bournemouth did get a goal on 33 minutes. Surprise, surprise. It was a set-piece goal. Forest conceded from a corner. But I don't really know how much they could have done about it. It was a well-worked routine from Bournemouth. They played it in, and then it was round the corner from Tavernier back to Lewis Cook, fired it in, and then Forest, as they often are, were very calamitous in clearing the ball. And it drops to Dango Ouattara, who taps it in from 3 yards. But as we know now, VAR ruled it out, Lewis Cook offside. And Tom, we mentioned Forest's good first half. If VAR's going in our favour, we're playing well and the luck's on our side.
Yeah, but again, it's like VAR saved us, thankfully, but we switched off, didn't we? And they played that like short corner. They played it around, and then obviously scored from it. But we've got to be switched on, because we was all over the place, really, wasn't we? Thankfully, got ruled out. But yeah, at all times you've got to be switched on in this league, because that split second of like not concentrating can open you up and you're in trouble. And that's what happened yesterday. But thankfully, VAR saved us.
Yeah, I thought we were a lot better at set pieces. Obviously, we did concede that goal, and if you make one mistake in one match, it's always going to be highlighted. But particularly attacking set pieces, I think the delivery was something that was a big contrast. Gibbs White, I love Gibbs White. What a fantastic player. Possibly the best player I've ever seen in the Forest shirt, but his set piece delivery, I don't think is up to scratch. So we saw Elanga taking them. I thought he fired a few good balls in, and Anderson when he came on as well. And defensively wise, I thought apart from that, we handled them quite well. So in terms of set pieces, Tom, apart from that incident, which we can't really skirt because it's gone in and luckily we were saved, were you more happy with what you saw from that regard?
Yeah, I think we saw the massive improvement last season once Bolly come back from his injury and AFCON and all of that. We did look more assured on set pieces and things like that. And same again yesterday, we looked more assured. And I think that's why we've signed Milenkovic from Fiorentina, just to, because obviously I think his heading ratio in Serie A last year was something like 79%, something like that. And I think he had the highest heading ratio of clearances in Serie A. So yeah, hopefully they've addressed it. But yeah, it's just that split second of not concentrating that opens us up on the goal, what was disallowed. But yeah, we'll have to see how we'll get on in the next few weeks, because Billing didn't start the game and he's been like a menace from set pieces. And obviously, if you watched Villa yesterday against West Ham, and they scored like a really good set piece with Onana scoring. So we'll have to see where it goes, because obviously there's different teams in the Premier League are a bit more better on set pieces than Bournemouth. Bournemouth are really technical football inside, etc. So we'll just have to see if we've got rid of the ghost of the set piece frailties of last season.
Well, we're talking about height. I was going to talk about Bolly later, but I think we'll mention him now because I thought he was up there with our best players yesterday. There was a lot of dilly-dallying from a defensive point of view, I thought, with players passing in the wrong areas or trying to do too much. But Bolly, 5 or 6 times, just hoofed it long, hoofed it out of play, did what we needed. I thought in the air, like we mentioned, he was superb and dominant. And we know that how well he complements Murillo. Obviously, last season, I think our difficulties were when he wasn't fit and when we had someone like Omar next to him who doesn't have the height to supplement what Murillo doesn't have. Murillo probably didn't have his best game either yesterday, but I thought Boly was the real standout. So Milenkovic might have his work cut out to get in the side, do you think? Obviously, the stats suggest that he will be a really good addition. But I don't think it's a walk in the park for him to just saunter back in unless Boly gets injured, which is most likely.
Yeah, that's the thing with Boly. It doesn't really complete over 30-odd games a season kind of thing. So Milenkovic, I think, will play his fair share of games. But with Boly yesterday, I've said to my dad, he is a really, really fair defender. You know, like you get some defenders where they put challenges and they leave something on the opponent and everything. But he's very fair, very clean. And obviously got sent off against Bournemouth last year, which was the worst decision I've probably seen in ever watching Forest. It was just horrific. So yeah, he's very fair. And like I said, when he came into the side last year after his AFCON and injury troubles, he will look more assured. And yeah, he was brilliant yesterday. And when you needed a player there to clear it or intercept the ball, he was there.
Yeah, definitely. So towards the end of the first half, there was a chance for Hudson-Odoi from the left side cutting in, putting it towards the far stick, but Neto got a claw to it, and then Bournemouth counter-attacks and forced Sells into a good save. That was about it for the first half. I think it was a very good first half display. They looked mixed in attack. They could build from possession, but also with the quick passing that we saw. And defensively, other than set pieces, we didn't really look that troubled. So we'll take a break and we'll discuss the second half and the manager after it.
The 1865 Match Report.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Hello and welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Match Report, coming to you on the Monday after the Saturday that opened the season that saw Forest draw 1-1 with Bournemouth. We've discussed the first half. Let's move on to the second half. And Tom, I'll let you talk about this. Nico Williams' challenge earlier on in the first half and then later on, and his antics. Was he looking to stay on the pitch?
Yes, he was. Especially the one what Michael Oliver gave a corner. He didn't get any contact. We was in the upper Bridgeford end, and I thought, yeah, some referees would have been quick over there to issue the second yellow card and off. And yeah, as soon as he's got that booking, I think Bournemouth targeted him with is it Qatar and Sinistera. I think they were like getting up on him, kind of thing, like thinking one false move from Williams here, and he would have been sent off. So he's very lucky to be on the field. With some referees might have been like so quick to run over there, and but thankfully a corner was given. And then it was obviously he's struggling with his groin or hamstring, wasn't he? And I thought he was going to go off at one point, but we'll come back. We'll come onto it. But the subs yesterday again, I don't know how much training he's done or this, that, and the other, but he had Yot Silva on the bench, and then he brings Dominguez on, and Dominguez, we all know he's not a winger. He's a central midfielder. But yeah, just affect the balance of the side yesterday. Elanga went off and he brought, whether he trusts Dominguez more and he's more defensive. But again, when you're like sitting on a 1-goal lead and you're inviting pressure up, it was just one of those where they were just going to get. You just know they were going to get back into the game yesterday. Because like I said, we're not very good at sitting on 1-goal leads, and then he brings Dominguez on, and I like Dominguez, don't get me wrong, but he's not a winger, and then obviously you had Moreira on the bench, didn't you, who probably could have like come on with Williams, because you knew Williams was struggling, especially on that booking and everything, and then obviously the doubled up on him kind of thing. So again, Nuno's substitutions yesterday were suspect in my eyes.
Yeah, and we've seen it so many times, and it baffles me how managers still can't grasp that Forest can't sit on a 1-goal lead, and it's a repeated theme that keeps happening. And we never seem to be able to. I think Fulham at home, that was our last home win, I'm pretty sure. And that's the last time I can remember us stringing together. I mean, the first half was incredible, and the second half, we'd already pretty much won the game and we held out. But that's the only real time of recent memory I can remember us stringing together 2 really good halves of football that meant we earned a win in a game, because yesterday, it just wasn't that at all. Not much happened until the substitutes, like you mentioned. Elanga and Aina both went down within a few minutes of each other, so they both went off. Toffolo came on for Aina, and it was Dominguez, like Tom mentioned, came on off for Elanga. And like you've mentioned, why Moreira didn't maybe come on to the wing, or Jota Silva, or I thought even Elliot Anderson. I know Anderson is a midfielder, but I thought he was far more athletic than someone like Dominguez is. He fits a winger more than what Dominguez does. And obviously he ended the game at the wing because Nuno took Hudson-Odoi off later on, who Hudson-Odoi doesn't often play a full 90 anyway, to be fair. So he ended the game with Dominguez and Anderson on both wings. It was very baffling. I think you can blame tired legs for the poor performance, but the manager does have to take the brunt of it now. We saw some people already murmuring that Nuno's time is up. What's Nuno doing in it? Over the summer, we could have recruited a better manager. I do still think it's a bit early for that, Tom, don't you?
Yeah. At the end of the day, if we going back to Steve Cooper, we appreciate everything he's done. He was the first manager to obviously get us promoted in 23 years. And he kept us in the Premier League. But Nuno's remit was keep us in the league. Give him pre-season, get his own players in, and obviously put a stamp on things. And there's more positives than negatives in my eyes. He has to help himself with his substitutions and everything. But talking about changing a manager now, I just think it's so knee-jerk. It's not needed. Having said that, I don't think it will come from the fan base. But looking at these games, the first 4 or 5 fixtures are more favourable than last year. If you remember, we played Arsenal first game of the season, and we had Sheffield United at home, but then we had Man U, Man City, Chelsea, and it was kind of like whoever sorts the fixtures out have like really done the dirty on us. But this season it's more favourable. Obviously, we played Bournemouth yesterday, and you think Bournemouth at home, no disrespect to them, I know the bogey side, but you probably like more hopeful of getting like next week away where they've just like been promoted, etc. Then you got Wolves here who. Obviously, they've lost Pedro Neto to Chelsea, and you think you can really put like a stamp on things for starting the season really well. But having said that, if we have a poor start, then obviously the pressure is going to be on Nuno. They have backed him. Hopefully, from now until the window closes, we can get a striker for him, because obviously with Awani's fitness issues and would be 32, 33. Yeah, and obviously. After that, we haven't got anybody, because if you remember, we had the Divock Origi experiment last year, which was disastrous for us. So we do need another striker. I don't know what's in the pot financially, but it'd be nice to get somebody like Jimenez. And I mean, obviously, people have turned their noses up at Nketiah, and we have to start Scott Legs. But but first and foremost, we do need another striker, because obviously we can't rely on Wood and Awani to get the goals to keep us in this league.
Yeah, definitely not. Just finally on Nuno, I think even in the pre-season, you can see how much of an improvement it has been under Cooper, because Cooper often would play half the reserve teams for most of the pre-season. We wouldn't see players like Gibbs White, and obviously Gibbs White had international duty. But that first game at Chesterfield that I was there, Nuno played a first team. We played 2 halves of very strong sides, and like Tom mentioned earlier, we look like a Premier League side. We look a lot more balanced. We can defend in different ways. We can attack in different ways. And I think it really has, even though last season we finished on the pitch 2 points less than the season before, I think by the end we looked a far better side than we did at the end of the season before. So I think you just got to give him time. And on sort of where we need to recruit, I think it became quite clear yesterday that we need to maybe look at a left back, because Aina, has he ever completed a full 90 minutes? And when Harry Toffolo came on, and we'll get to the goal in a second that Forest conceded, it looked a bit of a drop-off, Tom.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a really good person around the club and everything. With obviously his things in the community and mental health awareness and all of that. And he is a likable bloke. But yeah, I think when he come on, there is deficiencies in his play. And there was a similar goal. It escapes me who it was against, but it was a similar goal we conceded at that end of the ground last season. And same again, it was an absolute mess, wasn't it? Because when the cross come in from the right back position, Toffolo's like facing the play, and I know he's predominantly left-footed, but he's tried to he's cleared it with it back into the danger zone. And if that cross comes in, there's going to be 3 or 4 Bournemouth players on the penalty spot all around it, waiting for to put the cross in, and it's a bit of a woeful clearance, isn't it? It's like a hit and hope, really, without any conviction. And he hits against Murillo. Murillo hasn't obviously got the time to react as Semenyo taps it in. And I mean, it could have gone anyway. It's like, because he's facing the touchline of where the Brian Clough stand is. he could try and like hook it away with his right foot, like facing, but he's like hooked it back into the danger zone. It's an absolute mess of a goal. And some like left backs have got that little composure where they're like trying to like dummy it to try. I know he's got to get a touch on it to get all of that, but some players have got that composure and awareness of like make out that I'm going to make contact with the ball and just like let it go out for like a goal kick or throwing. But no, it's just a rush panic again. And yeah, Semenyo scored. And like I said earlier in the pod, that with us sitting on a 1-goal lead, they're going to like up the ante and try and get something from the game, and they did. And 1 goal is never enough. If you support Forest, is it? You could just see it happening, and then obviously they bring Clivett on, and then obviously Billing in midfield, who's been our nemesis for a number of years, and you just had a funny feeling that they were going to get something, and they did. Like I says, on the balance of play, it's probably a fair result, but yeah, it's a preventable goal, isn't it? I think Nuno touched on that in his post-match interview yesterday. It's such a preventable goal, and like I say, it's a mess again, isn't it? And it's 1-1, and that's that.
Yeah, on the goal, I think obviously Toffolo's got to take a lot of the blame for it, but a lot of the themes of the second half were shown there because the intensity was just not there like it was in the first half. Maybe it could be because of tired legs, but they gave Bournemouth far too much space. They didn't stop crosses, didn't close down. All things that they were doing in the first half, seemingly without batting an eyelid, in the second half suddenly wasn't there. And I've got to say, I don't 100% agree with the fact that it was a fair result. I think obviously Forest got what they deserved in that it was self-inflicted, but I think throughout the game, they were the only side trying to win the game, and Bournemouth just got lucky that we weren't very good. And obviously, if you don't do those basics against any Premier League side, they're the top 20 teams in the country, they're going to punish you. But I think Forest have more than enough to win that game. And honestly, I think people say Bournemouth are a nice possession-based team. When we played them, I mean, we can't beat them, but I've never really been impressed by them. I think they've always just been our nemesis and we've never really been able to overcome it. But particularly then, I didn't see much from them that impressed me, but they always seem to be able to carve out results. So it's a bit of a weird one on that regard. Let's talk about Taiwo then. You mentioned Taiwo coming on for about 15, 20 minutes, didn't really do that much. And obviously, we know that he does a lot more for our sort of attack and figureheading it than Chris Wood does. Do you think for the next few weeks, he didn't look 100% fit, it's just going to be cameo roles, or are you confident he can regain fitness and be the starting striker once again?
Yeah, it's going to take time, isn't it? I mean, some players can get through a game with like a knock and like still play to like a 7 out of 10 at like only 80% fitness levels. But no, with Taiwo, he needs to be 100%, even if he's 99.9% fit. He's not the Taiwo what we know kind of thing. Into when he's on it, he's on it. But yeah, he looked off the pace yesterday, and I think it's just going to be a case of managing him in the next month. And as like I says earlier, I sincerely hope we can get another striker because like last season there's factors where I was lucky that there was 3 worse sides than us, and we did struggle when we didn't have Chris Wood or one who we had to rely on Divock Origi. So yeah, we definitely need another striker. Like I said, when probably 3/4 there in terms of a decent side. I think whether we can get a goalkeeper, I think Sells is all right, but I don't think you can absolutely pin all your hopes on him as being our like secure number 1 for seasons to come kind of thing. I think there's some frailties in his game. I mean, his distribution's like really good, but yeah, sometimes there's deficiencies in him as a goalkeeper. Carlos Miguel, we don't really know. Really, I mean, he's only played a couple of few halves of pre-season, and then obviously we've got the Matt Turner with all his problems last season. So, but first and foremost, I think we need a striker because I don't think we can rely on Wood and Awani. I think winger-wise, I think we're all right. We've got obviously Yota, whether he goes Olympiacos on loan will remain to be seen. Hudson Odoi and Alanga, we know what they can do. Ramon Sousa, who I'm really looking forward to see what he can do since he's moved from Argentinian football. And then, probably need a left-back. Like you said, I think Toffolo he's all right in terms of like he's a good person to have around the club and everything, but I think he's I just don't think he's at the standard to be a Premier League left back who can play game in, game out kind of thing. So I don't think he's as good as Iron, but Iron's obviously can't last longer than 70 minutes. So we do need a left back and need a striker, and hopefully those two positions will be sorted come the end of August.
And one player we have got in is Elliot Anderson, who I'm really trying to find out a place for him. I initially thought he was sort of an attacking midfielder, but people say they sort of want him next to Sangare. Obviously, Nuno played him as a winger. Do you think he's ever going to find his way into the starting sort of 11, or is he just going to be a sort of utility player who we use to fill gaps? What do you think about him?
I think it's going to take time to actually know what his strongest position is. I think he's a player what can do a bit of everything, because when he was at Newcastle last year, he can play in the midfield. When Tonali got his ban for his betting and everything, obviously, then when you've got Bruno Guimaraes, when he was suspended or whatever, he filled in there. Then obviously he filled on the wing when Anthony Gordon wasn't playing. So I think he can do both roles, but I think he needs to find his position where we can actually find a place in the side for him. But you never know, he might get his now Danilo's going to be out injured for a good few months or whatever. There might be a place in the centre midfield, because obviously he's got that like physique, and he could be quite good next to Sangare. Then obviously you got Yates in there and Dominguez, who he needs to play in the centre midfield if we're going to play him, because I think he's absolutely wasted on the wing. It didn't work last season. It didn't work yesterday. But like I said, we've got the hallmarks of a good side. We're just got to get rid of these frailties defensively.
Yeah, that's it. So just finally then, if we look forward, I think coming into the opening three, like you said, it was a very favourable, particularly compared to the games we've had at the start of the seasons before. It was a very favourable run for Forest, the first three. Now, the hope was 9. I think an ambitious expectation was 7 points. And I think many fans wouldn't settle for anything less than 5. That really did initiate that Forest probably had to win on the opening day, and really just to get the momentum up and the morale up and the belief up in the squad and in the stands. So I think 5 points maybe from these first 3, if we can. Is it Southampton or Wolves? Which one's more likely, Tom? And how are you feeling ahead of them after seeing what we did yesterday?
If we get rid of the flexors, the frailties, we'll be all right next week. But having said that, Southampton absolutely battered Newcastle yesterday after Fabian Schär got sent off with that altercation with Brereton Diaz, which he's gone down like a sack of spuds, hasn't he? He's really played. He's really done the dirty on Fabian Schär, and I just think with Southampton, they've got Russell Martin, who's obviously this new modern day manager kind of thing, and whether he can sustain how they played last season in the Championship and bring it into the Premier League, because it's a different kettle of fish. We tried it under Steve Cooper, and obviously in our first season we had to change our ways just to stay in the Premier League, which we did. Vincent Kompany last year was too naive and too pig-headed to actually change his morals of how Burnley, and they obviously suffered, and they improved towards the back end of the season, but again it was too little too late for him. So but I'll be going into the game next Saturday, which I'm going. You got to be positive against the promoted side and everything, and because like I said, they've got Brereton Diaz, and let's not forget that he was in a very poor Sheffield United side last year, and he didn't score many goals. Was it something like 6 goals or something like that?
Yeah, I think he was injured for a spell, but not overly impressive.
But Southampton have signed him, and I just don't think he's going to get enough goals, unless the goals are spread out and he gets like, I don't know, 8 to 10 goals kind of thing, and it's spread out. I wouldn't pin my hat on Brereton Diaz scoring enough goals to keep Southampton in the league, kind of thing. And like I said, I'm positive again next week. I'm always positive going into games because you just never know in football. But get rid of the defensive frailties and play our own game and play to our strengths. I think we'll be all right next Saturday.
Yeah, well, these defensive frailties we've had for years, so I'm not sure it's going to be an overnight fix, to be honest. And Southampton away, it's the type of game that I think if we're going to be the club that we want to be, it's a game we've really got to tick off. Obviously, it was our only win away, wasn't it? I was there in that first Premier League season, so hopefully we can kick it off with a win. Yeah, so me and Tom will both be at St Mary's. I'm sure many of the 1865 team will be. Thanks for joining me, Tom, and thanks for your time, listener. We'll be back next week with the Friday 5 and the match report from the South Coast. But until then, have a good week and come on, you Reds.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.